lot of money on uncapped players, and we'll just have a look at some of their key squad members. They've kept their core from last year with the trades they made, so we're expecting Gaikwad, Samson, Brevis, Ayush Matre to be part of a power-hitting top order. How many of those uncapped players can they go for? As far as the bowling goes, Akhil Hossain, very interesting. Noor Ahmed, of course, but they will have to bank on some seam bowlers over here that they can rely on. Now, GS, break down the ideal playing 11 and what combinations they have.
Yeah, so CSK have a problem of plenty. The way their auction went, they spent about 28 crores on 2 uncapped players. Now, when you spend so much money, it's important to see if you actually play them in the 11 or whether you play them in that 11 or you kind of use them as an impact, etc. Right? So CSK have this. They've previously done it when K. Gautam was picked for I think 9 crores. I don't think he played a game, or he played just one game. So CSK are not so bent on like just because we have bought someone for a high amount of money. We have
Ben Stokes. There was Daryl Mitchell. There are quite a few high-profile examples.
So that's one team who know that that just because I bought someone, I don't have to play. So and they have some top-class openers. They have actually 4 openers. They have Ayush Matre, Urvil Patel, Sanju Samson and Ruturaj Gaikwad technically. So again, the decision they take on that will be based purely on form and what they're expecting at the top.
Pause. What is their ideal opening? Now you've heard those 4 names. So captain, if you have to decide, you've got a lot of top-order players.
Yeah, first of all, I think just listening to the analysts there, what I would say is being around the dressing room there, the plan is always to spend your money on the players that you think are going to play. So I think there would be how are we going to fit these guys into our 11? I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's always like priority on the guys who wants to play, and then you try and build your bench around not spending too much money. But I've also seen the shift from all the years of Chennai in terms of experience has now moved to youth, and that's a very unlike CSK way. And it came at a time where the old way of CSK just bringing back people from different franchises and reviving their careers, and then they're doing well under MS Dhoni and win an IPL title. For the first time, that failed last year. So there was a shift in terms of getting younger players in a newer generation of cricketers, a more explosive generation of cricketers. And now if you look at that top 5, you certainly see that. You see Matre, you see Samson coming in. I think it was an excellent trade.
Yeah.
A lot at the time people were questioning, obviously Jadu being a stalwart of CSK, one of the icons, the greatest CSK players ever. But I think in terms of what Sanju brings for that team is a specialist batter that brings you a lot of runs. And if you look throughout CSK's history, opening partnerships has been a big part of their story. So I think what they have now is they have the experience of Sanju, and then they're bringing the exuberance of Yush and Matre. And then Rutu can bat anywhere, but we've seen like 3 as a position, probably that himself has chosen for himself and not the franchise. And then you've got Brevis, Dubé, so it's a top 5 that you would go, wow.
Great. So just sticking on the openers though, because Matre during the Under-19 World Cup decided to also come down at 3. Now you can go with 2 plans here. Matre to start, or if he doesn't fire, then we can change something. Or is Matre Samson the set in stone plan A for you for openers?
Just to start with CSK, all of that's being addressed, all of that was Dhoni's team. I think this year we're seeing a shift towards this is Ruturaj Gaikwad's team. He wants these sort of players. Last couple of seasons, they've had the worst opening partnerships, worst power play scores. They were behind the 8 ball in terms of how they started. It was always the CSK way to keep wickets in hand. I think the game's changed to a power play game where you get 60 is a bare minimum. CSK was still at about 50 for 1 and they were behind the 8 ball. So I think they've gone there, and biggest thing to address is the opening pair, and they've got Sanju before the auction. So I think Sanju and Matre open for me, and I still think he will be as explosive as ever. He opened for Mumbai. I think he struggled a little bit in the South African pitches, so he needed a little bit more solidity in the Under-19 World Cup, so they went for Aaron George. But if you've got Matre in the side and Ritu wants to bat 3, unfortunately Urvil Patel misses out. So that's my top 3.
All right, GS, carry on, please. So the batting seems to be their strength, the top order batting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't end there. Then you have Deval Brevis and Shivam Dubé who can kind of smash spin. And they can always switch Dubey and Bevis based on the left-right because it looks like the top 4 are right otherwise. So they can always do that. And then is when the confusion starts beginning. You have Dhoni, you have Prashant Veer, and you have Kartik Sharma. Now, there are two ways, Ronak, you can actually skin this cat.
Okay.
One is because they have Sanju Samson now as a full-time keeper, and if Dhoni is likely to play those 7-8 balls only, if his body holds up, and he's planning to do that, and if they feel that Sanju can do the keeping and Dhoni's hitting and experience might be needed, they can use Dhoni as an impact player, which was not possible all these days, and they can play both the young Kartik Sharma and Prashant Veer. But what you sacrifice there is the great experience and Dhoni's presence on the field with the keeping, which I think is much more than actually playing Kartik or Veer. So in my team, I had Dhoni as a starter, and Prashant Veer obviously pips Kartik Sharma because he bowls, and otherwise they're bowling, that balance in that bowling drops because none of the tops, like 7.
So
bowl.
that's the proposal, that MS, the keeper, is still more valuable, or you can go MS as just impact player, and so you can have perhaps a more reliable 11 in Kartik Sharma. What is the better way to go?
For me, as long as MS Dhoni is playing cricket, I need his cricket brain on the field.
Simple as that. Abhi?
Pretty much on the same lines, but if Sanju has to play, I think he keeps, right? And if MS plays, he keeps as well. So CSK have to take a call very early in the season, who's keeping.
That's an interesting one because you also want your best fielders out in the middle, right? Now Samson is more natural keeper. MS, if he plays, has to keep. Tricky one. Could this be?
Very tricky one. So they have to take a call first game of the season.
Okay. GS.
And that lends to the bowling attack. Now, they are one team which now we picked only one overseas. That's a luxury in IPL when you have a top 7 and you have only one overseas. So you can again play various.
Very rare, isn't it?
Very rare. So you can play various combinations. That's where the Samson trade became even more powerful, where they've gone with, like, we've heard, have an Indian core and you build around it. So that kind of clicks well with them. Now it's up to, from whatever we've seen of the Chepauk wicket, it feels like it's a batting paradise. I don't think it's going to change. So you need good defensive bowlers, you need bowlers who can nail those Yorkers, and I don't think you need those bunch of spinners. So that is where you can go in multiple ways. You have Matt Henry, you can play Nathan Ellis, and you can play Noor Ahmed along with your Indian pacer. And the reason why that impact player is a batter is if you don't need that batsman, you can actually bring in one more extra Indian pace bowler there or spinner based on condition. So
all right. Now you've mentioned a core, which means 7, largely your batting is Indian, your bowling is overseas. However, Noor Ahmed's a lock-in. What is the area of concern with CSK, the bowling unit? Is it death bowling? Is Nathan Ellis running solo over there? And therefore, what kind of bowling do they pick? Is it power play bowling? What is the issue?
I would think that CSK haven't sort of given too much heed there. I felt they were a little bit confused in the auction what type of bowler they needed. If they're going on these sort of flat pitches, and I'm thinking that this is something they wanted for a long time, they don't have defensive bowlers. Matt Henry is purely a new ball specialist. He does get hit at the death. Nathan Ellis is not a proven 14-game performer in the IPL. I know it's very difficult with injuries, but now you've got into a situation where you either play Matt Henry or Akil Hussain, both are power play options, and you play Nathan Ellis, where you've got Khalil Ahmed, Anshul Kamboj and Noor Ahmed to fill in. You are essentially playing 3 bowlers every single game, which is why for me the Patirana release or just before that felt a little bit shocking because they've invested so much in Patirana and there's so much upside. But overall, their batting looks so strong. You're banking on them to get 200 and 220 every single game. But the bowling is a trade-off. You have to find that defensive bowler. Right now, it isn't there for CSK.
Unless, of course, there is a name in the dugout that we don't know of just yet who they've relied on. Could it be a Gurjapneet Singh? Could it be Zach Fox? Could it be someone that that's not screaming pre-season to us? But is that a concern when you look at that team, Faf?
No, I think he's spot on. I would look at conditions, whether it's Matt Henry or Akil Hussain. One of those two comes in if you feel the ball's going to spin. Because power play wickets is also something that you really have to zone in on who's my power play wickets. With Khalil, they have that. And then at the back end, you're looking at the death. And that's where Patirana played such a big role. Nathan Ellis is supposedly, over a period of time, been a very good death bowler. But yes, in terms of IPL, in terms of form, 14 games, what does that look like for him?
And
in terms of Patirana, sorry, just lastly, I think, putting myself in their shoes, I think that the injury concern around Patirana for a period of time now becomes a real red flag when you have to bank on someone if you're paying him so much money as a full season player, and once again he's injured before the tournament.
In a way, they'd feel in some ways vindicated. While they wouldn't be delighted for that situation, they can understand why they made that decision. Yes, GS.
No, I think just as Abhi had pointed out, I think their power play is pretty good. I think very reliable. Their power play bowling and power play batting, I think they're sorted. But the second half of the innings is where I think they're going to struggle quite a bit, because they don't have that designated, who's my, like apart from Nathan Ellis, there's nobody whom I can say, yeah, go to. Like we saw the match, whenever India wanted something, you know, they go to Bumrah. Whenever a particular team, you have a banker. But I don't see that apart from Nathan Ellis, right, overs 14 to 20, who's going to kind of control the game here.
Yeah.
Of course, we're doing all teams here, and for 9 teams at least, we will have the same chat. They don't have a Bumrah. So that is just fair.
Yeah.
Right, so to sum up, they've got a strong top order. We expect CSK to have good power play returns with the bat and possibly with the ball. Noor Ahmed, they're counting heavily on him to have an impact in the middle. Death bowling is a concern.
Yeah, and Indian
Anything
spinners
else?
also.
Indian
Both of them
spinners.
are pretty much been around the circuit for a long time, but they haven't had the necessary returns, both Shreyas Gopal and Rahul Chahar.
Do you see Prashant Veer playing Jadeja's role consistently, or is that too much of an expectation in season
Of course
one?
it is. You've let go of Jadeja at 14, you've bought him back at 14.